For 17 years as a maid in ancient times, I resigned myself to marrying into the general's mansion alongside my lady. The young scholar from the house across the alley achieved the third highest rank in the imperial examinations. A maid and a top scholar seemed destined to have no connection. Yet one day, he grabbed my sleeve, his eyes red and brimming with tears. I know I was wrong, but fortunately, it's not too late. In this lifetime, let's start over. I was stunned. Then quickly realized what was happening. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. It's too late. I am now the honored concubine of the general. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful novels every day. Now the story begins. My name is Chulu, and I have been in this ancient era for 17 years. Now I am the maid of Lu Ru, the legitimate daughter of the third-rank general. The young lady is very kind. Knowing that I have no intention of climbing the social ladder and do not wish to become a concubine, she begged the mistress to return my deed of servitude before her marriage. I waited patiently for the young lady to marry, dreaming of the days when I would leave the mansion. One day, the young lady woke up, held me tightly, and burst into tears. How could you leave so soon? Chulu, you were still so young. How am I supposed to live without you? Others might think the young lady was merely troubled by a nightmare, but it occurred to me, could it be that the young lady had been reborn? As it turned out, my guess was correct. The young lady, after crying, dried her tears and stared at the strange yet familiar room, wide-eyed. Unable to come back to her senses for a long time, her voice trembled. Chulu, what time is it now? I am. She clearly realized that it was still the time before she was married. The person looked around in disbelief. The nanny beside her spoke to comfort her. Miss, are you still half asleep? I know you and Chulu are deeply attached as mistress and maid, but you're not even married yet and already worrying about her. If I may say, if you really can't bear to part with her, you could just take Chulu with you when you marry. Hearing the nanny's words, my heart sank with panic. I looked up at the young lady and found that she was actually considering it seriously. I secretly thought, this is bad. If I were to marry along with the young lady, I would most likely become a Tongfang, a maid who also serves as a concubine. Matron Zhong is the madam's trusted aide. She had previously intended for me to be a dowry maid to help the young lady secure her position. To put it bluntly, that would make me a concubine, someone who could be bought and sold at will. Naturally, I was unwilling. I wonder what exactly happened in the past that made the young lady change her mind. Fortunately, the young lady did not immediately adopt Nanny Zhong's suggestion. She dismissed everyone else, keeping only me by her side. Gazing at my face, she took a deep breath and began to speak slowly. She said she had been reborn, past life. After she married the young and famous General Chu Shuyuan, I got my deed of indenture and rented a small courtyard to live on my own. Life was quite comfortable. Once, I saved the scholar Zhong Ziyuan from next door who had fallen into the water. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, Zhong Ziyuan had no choice but to marry me. Yet we never shared a bed. Madame Zhong had raised her son alone, hoping he would marry a well-bred lady to smooth his path in officialdom. Now, she felt cheated by a maid like me, who had bought her own freedom. Naturally, she was unwilling to accept it. Later, Zhong Ziyuan achieved the third highest rank in the imperial examinations, and Zhong's mother disliked me even more. She even threatened with her life. Demanding that Chu Shuyuan give me a letter of divorce, Zhong Ziyuan absolutely refused. He said that I had saved his life, and moreover, the money for his imperial exams had all been provided by me. If he were to divorce me now, how would others view him? I frowned and asked. So, I just stayed with him. The young lady nodded. Yes, back then you said, since you had to marry someone anyway, and you couldn't bear the hardship of being a nun, then you might as well endure the hardship of being with a man. That does sound like something I would say. With the young lady's reminder, upon careful thought, leaving the mansion doesn't seem like a very good choice. Without the protection of the Lu mansion, it seems truly difficult for a woman like me to survive in ancient times. However, in the Lu mansion, the status of a maid is just too low. I will never forget, in the 3rd month after I first entered the mansion, a maid climbed into the eldest young master's bed. The mistress summoned all the servants, making everyone watch with wide eyes as that maid was beaten to death right before me. Later, I heard that it was the eldest young master of the household who had first harassed the maid. Perhaps the maid also had ambitions to climb higher, and she half-heartedly went along with it. As a result, the young master's studies declined. The mistress investigated thoroughly, and in the end, all the blame was shifted onto the maid. Although my looks are not breathtakingly beautiful, I do have a certain charm. Otherwise, the mistress wouldn't have considered having me marry into the Chu family to secure the young lady's favor. if it weren't for the young lady's protection, I would truly fear that the young masters in the household might take a liking to me. Chulu, why don't you come with me and marry into the Chu family? The young lady roughly finished recounting her past life and tentatively spoke up. After thinking it over, I resignedly nodded. It's always cool under a big tree. The young lady surely wouldn't harm me. Just like in the past life, the Chu family made a betrothal arrangement with the Lu family. It was only then that I remembered to ask the young lady about Chu Shuyuan. The young lady waved her hand dismissively, sitting in a pavilion along the corridor, watching the koi fish swimming back and forth. Her tone was full of sarcasm. 5 days after the wedding, he left for the border. When he returned, he brought back a woman with a swollen belly. A trace of sorrow tinged her brow. It seemed life had not been kind to her since she married into the Chu family. Indeed, if life had been good, why would the young mistress have held me and wept? I did not ask the young mistress why. Knowing how unhappy her previous life had been, she still chose to marry into the Chu family. Living in ancient times, I finally understood how difficult it was for women, not to mention that ancient society was always harsh on women, with marriages arranged by parents and matchmakers. Even now, the Chu family is considered to be marrying above their station. Chu Shuyuan is the heir of the Marquis of Junnan, and the Lu family has finally managed to catch the Marquis's eye, even if the young lady were to refuse and cause an uproar. The Lu family would never call off the engagement. Alas, everything is fated, and nothing is up to us. The young lady didn't want to say more, just stared blankly at the koi. The mistress, knowing I was willing to accompany the young lady into the Chu family, rewarded me with many things. She even gave me 3 days off. Rarely having free time, I strolled leisurely out of the mansion. For a moment, I actually felt a bit lost. Stopping on the bridge, the shimmering water reflected the sunset glow. People came and went, and someone bumped into me. Subconsciously, I reached for my waist. Good. The money was still there. Miss, are you all right? Looking up, I saw a very handsome young man, dressed in a long gown, refined and elegant. Wasn't he the young scholar from next door? I shook my head, quickly straightened up, took a big step back to keep my distance, and then hurried away. I didn't tell the young lady about running into Zhong Ziyuan, to spare her from worrying about me. Chuan Lu, who's always been at odds with me, just had to add fuel to the fire while combing the young lady's hair this morning. Miss, I've heard that scholar Zhong next door is both handsome and talented in his studies. If he takes the imperial exam, he's sure to pass with flying colors. Back then, on the bridge, I saw Sister Chulu staring at Scholar Zhong. Could it be she's taken a liking to him? I wonder if the two of them have known each other all along. When Sister Chulu wanted to leave the manor earlier, could it have been for him? The young lady angrily slapped her hand on the table. Chuan Lu was delighted, thinking her words had taken effect. Miss, please don't be angry, Sister Chulu. She still wanted to add fuel to the fire, but the young lady stood up and sternly shouted at her to stop, and only then did she shut up. Chuan Lu, put away your petty schemes. If it weren't for Nanny Zhong's sake, I would definitely throw you out. Chuan Lu was scolded, and before leaving, she shot me a fierce glare. I am also quite helpless. She is the granddaughter of Nanny Zhong, and with that connection, it's somewhat understandable that Chuan Lu usually acts a bit arrogantly, but she wants to become a chambermaid and eventually a concubine. Chuan Lu has always seen me as a thorn in her side on her path to becoming a concubine. She thought that as long as I left, she would have a chance. But she forgot that the mistress had already placed her among the maids to be dismissed from the household. Miss, what has Chuan Lu done wrong? Normally, even if Chuan Lu spoke out of turn, the young lady would turn a blind eye. It must be that Chuan Lu did something in her previous life, and now she's still prancing around in front of the young lady, which is why the young lady is so angry. The young lady looked at me and sighed. Those who understand me are like Chuan Lu, in her past life. Somehow she won the admiration of Zhong Ziyuan, and he was originally going to take her as a concubine, but who would have thought that Zhong's mother would not allow it, and Chuan Lu became an old maid in her 20s. In the end, she was arbitrarily matched by the authorities to a pig butcher, and unable to bear such a blow, she threw herself into the river. At this point, she let out a scornful laugh. Actually, I later found out that she didn't die at all. She hooked up with a wealthy man and later became his concubine. He turned his head and looked at me with regret. The complexity in his eyes was something I couldn't understand. With a sigh, the young lady said leisurely, Zhong Ziyuan refused to join the factional strife. He married you, yet he resents you for his stalled career and Chuan Lu's death. You see it clearly, yet you're powerless to change the situation, forced to endure it stubbornly. So young, and yet, hearing you say that, I put myself in your shoes and only felt exhausted. No wonder you dislike Chuanlu. Even I find her irritating now. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day of your wedding. Stepping into the general's mansion, the past life you told me about felt like a fleeting cloud. From now on, we will support each other in this general's mansion, and I hope everything goes smoothly. Unlike Zhong Ziyuan, Chu Shuyuan had a sharp gaze. As soon as he entered the bridal chamber, he dismissed us. I felt uneasy in my heart, seeing the gentle look in the young lady's eyes. I left with worry. I leaned against the window uneasily, listening intently. With a creak, the window was pushed open, and I found myself face to face with Chu Shuyuan, an awkward moment hanging between us. I had no choice but to slink away in embarrassment. Early the next morning, I brought water and waited. When Chu Shuyuan opened the door, he glanced at me, snorted coldly, and left. I don't care about his attitude. Miss Worry, hurry up and go inside. How'd it go? I've always wanted to ask about the young lady's marriage into the Marquis household in her previous life, but because of the difference in our status, I didn't know how to bring it up. I only occasionally heard bits and pieces from the young lady's own words. Right now, I'm just afraid that the young lady might lose her patience and get into a fight with Chu Shuyuan. The young lady is no match for Chu Shuyuan. Don't worry. He hasn't met Li Shiyun yet, so he won't lose face in front of his new wife, Li Shiyun, the girl Chu Shuyuan brought back from the battlefield in their past life, wedged between Chu Shuyuan and the young lady's marriage, just like Chuanlu was in my marriage with Zhong Ziyuan in my previous life. I also guessed why the young lady and I felt a deep mutual sympathy in our past lives. We were both in the same miserable boat. No wonder the young lady was so heartbroken after I passed away. Just like in the previous life, 5 days later, Chu Shuyuan left for the borderlands. Before I left, the young lady had me share a room with him and promoted me to a noble concubine. In your past life, you never bore a child until your death. Zhong's mother once called you a hen that couldn't lay eggs. Yet you still clung to Zhong Ziyuan. Now I want to see whether it's Zhong Ziyuan who's incapable, or you who can't bear children. Sharing a room with Chu Shuyuan, I only felt awkward. Even though I knew it might happen before entering the Marquis's residence, it was all too sudden. Before I could utter my excuse, the young lady spoke of the unbearable memories from her past life. In my past life, I don't know why I couldn't bear a single child, while Li Shiyun gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl. I truly gave my all to raise her children. But in the end, since they didn't come from my own womb, when they grew up and achieved success, they refused to acknowledge me. The young lady clenched her hands tightly, her eyes blazing with hatred, and the words I was about to speak died on my lips. I knew in my heart that this was the best course of action, yet, I couldn't help but wonder if the bond between the young lady and I as mistress and servant would ever be the same. After learning that Chu Shuyuan had shared my bed before leaving for the border, the Marquise began to regard the young lady with newfound respect. Lady who, in her interactions with the young lady, truly began to treat her as if she were her own daughter. When they were out and about, she would even praise the young lady highly. On the 20th day after Chu Shuyuan left, the young lady and I went to offer incense. On the way, we saw Zhong Ziyuan happily heading toward a clothing store. The young lady was curious and, upon asking, learned that Zhong Ziyuan was to be married, and the bride was Chuanlu. The young lady smiled and lowered the curtain, murmuring, "That's just as well. It's not in vain that I brought the two of you together. I'd like to see what kind of happy ending you'll have together." I knew the young lady had done this for my sake, and I was deeply moved. A month later, I was with child. The young lady was overjoyed, and so was the Marquis household. That night, the young lady held me, crying uncontrollably. 3 years passed in a flash, and I gave birth to a boy, who was registered under the young lady's name. Chu Shuyuan beheaded an enemy general in one fell swoop, earning widespread renown. Soon, he returned triumphantly. I felt uneasy, fearing that peaceful days were about to be disrupted once more. Putting down the child's clothes, worry clouded my brow. The young lady was pacing back and forth excitedly, her eyes filled with determination. "Come. Accompany me for a walk." At the medical clinic, I saw the young lady buy an ounce of croton powder, and some harmful substances that cause pimples and itching. "Do you have any potion that can enchant the mind, and an antidote as well?" I followed behind, listening, and lowered my head. Even now in the private room, I still didn't dare to raise my head. Thankfully, the veil on my head was shielding me. Otherwise, I really couldn't have stayed. Compared to the young lady, I seem more like a conservative person from ancient times. Once we got the item, the young lady immediately pulled me away from there. After changing our clothes inside the carriage, We transformed back into the elegant ladies of the Marquis's household. With the item in hand, the young lady went to a famous tea house to drink tea and listen to music. On our way out, we met Chuanlu, who was crying so pitifully as she knelt before Zhong Ziyuan. "Husband, please don't divorce me. I only bought a hairpin, that's all." Chu Shuyuan's face flushed red, his eyes dazed. He held his head in his hands, clearly furious. "Only, that was the money I used to buy rice and meat. How dare you? I never knew you were like this. What Madame Chu said might be true, you haven't died." He suddenly pursed his lips and looked up, inadvertently catching sight of me, his eyes fixed intently on me. "Chulu." Zhong Ziyuan's movement made Chuanlu turn her head sharply, and when she saw it was me, she stood up excitedly. I was wearing the latest fabric of the season, the rare and priceless soft smoke silk, made into an outer garment that draped over me. The twin lotus hairpin on my head swayed in the air, its ruby shimmering and refracting dazzling light, not to mention the shoes on my feet, made of shoe brocade with a subtle pattern adorned with pearls. Compared to her, she seemed like a beggar. Even the hairpin she had just flaunted in the neighborhood, bought with stolen silver from home, paled in comparison. She suppressed the turmoil in her heart and wanted to pull Zhong Ziyuan away, but Zhong Ziyuan shook off her hand. He anxiously stepped forward, trying to grab my sleeve, his eyes red and teary. "I know I was wrong, but fortunately, it's not too late. In this lifetime, let's start over." I was stunned, but quickly understood what was going on. He had been reborn. Now that he had married Chuanlu as he wished, he was unhappy and started to remember how good I was. I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. "It's too late. I'm now General Chu's honored concubine." Zhong Ziyuan seemed unable to withstand the blow and was actually knocked to the ground by my slap. "You've come back too. No wonder." He looked devastated, his eyes filled with sorrow. I didn't want to engage with him, nor did I explain. It wasn't about me being reborn. Just about to leave, I was pulled back by Chuanlu. Chuanlu was extremely resentful inside. If it weren't for me, the life I'm living now would have been hers. How could it be like now, where she can't even afford an ordinary hairpin? She glared fiercely at me and the young lady. "Miss, why? We are both your maidservants. In what way am I inferior to her?" The young lady looked at her calmly and impatiently slapped her. "Are you sober now?" Although Chuanlu stopped talking, the resentment and anger in her eyes showed that she was clearly holding a grudge against the young lady. Zhong Ziyuan is, after all, an official appointed by the court. Chuanlu is his lawfully wedded wife. To have her slapped by the young lady like this, what face does he have left? "Madam Chu, Chuanlu used to be my maid, and she just called me young lady," clearly still remembering our master-servant bond. "Minister Zhong, I was merely disciplining a maid. Are you going to interfere with that?" Zhong Ziyuan was left speechless by the retort. Feeling he had lost face, he grabbed Chuanlu and left. Chu Shuyuan returned. Just like in his previous life, bringing back a pregnant woman, I didn't dress up specially, just as usual. According to Miss, with a child already, there's no need for Chu Shuyuan anymore. His fighting can only earn military honors for the child. As for the rest, just consider him dead. After all, the Chu family would never divorce to make room for Li Shiyun. If it were possible, Chu Shuyuan would have done it in his previous life. Li Shiyun descended behind Chu Shuyuan, supported by the maid. Chu Shuyuan, still worried, reached out and finally wrapped his arm around her waist to help her down. I couldn't help but want to laugh. Li Shiyun's belly looked as if she was about to give birth, and Chu Shuyuan barely managed to hold her with one arm. If he hadn't used his other hand to support her from behind, she might have fallen. That's it. Li Shiyun's gaze towards us was full of provocation. It was quite laughable. We went together to the main hall, and after greeting the parents, Chu Shuyuan introduced Li Shiyun. "Mother, this is Deputy General Li's sister." Deputy General Li was unfortunately shot through the throat by an enemy while saving me. Lady who clearly disliked Li Shiyun, frowning as she looked at her belly. "Shuyuan, Lieutenant Li saved you, and yet you take his sister as a concubine. You've been together without a matchmaker. What kind of behavior is that? Aren't you afraid of being laughed at if word gets out?" She valued propriety the most, and now, with this improper union, how could she be pleased? Yet, in my heart, I secretly felt relieved. If the young lady had not helped Chu Shuyuan take a concubine and had no children, perhaps Li Shiyun would have truly gained status through her son. Fortunately, the young lady had planned ahead. Chu Shuyuan bringing her back now, and with a big belly at that, is clearly meant to shame the young lady. The young lady didn't even get angry. It seems she suffered a lot in her past life. "Mother, please don't be angry. Since my husband likes her, let her stay by his side to serve. However, this young lady is pregnant, so her status is special. I wonder what position should be arranged for her. The Marquise consolingly patted the young lady's hand. Let's follow the rules and make her a secondary wife. Upon hearing this, Li Shiyun immediately became displeased, not to mention anything else. Even I, as a chambermaid, am now a concubine, typically referring to a distant cousin of the principal wife, can be entered into the husband's family register and is considered a legitimate secondary wife, after death. Her memorial tablet shares the same honors and offerings from descendants as the principal wife. If the young lady were to pass away before me, I might be promoted to an equal wife, and the children I bear could also transition from being of secondary status to primary. The young lady elevated me after I gave birth to a child, which can be said to have granted me immense honor and status. Regarding this matter, there isn't a single lady in the capital who doesn't praise the young lady. Chu Shuyuan was also dissatisfied and couldn't help but call out, "Mother, Deputy General Li died for me after all. Enough, you've just returned, let's discuss these trivial matters another time. The young lady is the daughter of a general and is skilled in martial arts." Chu Shuyuan came over in the evening, and I tactfully left with the child. Before leaving, I saw the young lady take advantage of Chu Shuyuan stepping aside to slip a bottle of croton powder into the tea. I pretended not to see it and quietly left. Returning to my room, I took a bath and came out to find Chu Shuyuan sitting at the table, sipping tea. "How did the general come?" Putting down the teacup, he stared at me for a long time. Chu Shuyuan let out a scornful laugh, his tone dripping with sarcasm and disdain. "What, can't I come? Or are you afraid that Lu Ru's incident with the croton powder will be exposed?" He pinched my face and exclaimed, "No wonder Lu Ru took a liking to you. This face does have some charm." "What, the young lady fancies me? Is that what I think it means? Your sordid affairs. This general has no desire to speak of, but considering you've borne me a son, damn, it really is. What on earth is Chu Shuyuan thinking? And how can he even tolerate this?" What the general said, this humble one does not understand. May the general enlighten me. Chu Shuyuan stood up and looked around. Everything in my room is of fine quality, many of which are not things a concubine could possess. Perhaps the young lady felt she owed me, so whenever there was something rare that caught my eye, she would give it to me. Over these 3 years, I've truly accumulated quite a few valuable items. Lu Ru did not share the wedding night with me 3 years ago. For you, she really went to great lengths. No consummation. I figured it out. All those novels I read in my past life weren't for nothing. Plus, with the young lady looking like she wanted to kill Chu Shuyuan, there's no way they consummated the marriage. It seems that in his previous life, Chu Shuyuan must have done many things wrong to the young lady, to the point where she couldn't even bear to go through the wedding night. Why does the general think it was for my sake? Why don't you consider that it might be your own fault? Still trying to make excuses. Everyone knows how deep the bond is between you and your master. Before Lu Ru got married, she used to hold you and cry. Later, when she heard you were willing to be her dowry companion, she stuck to you every moment. Sometimes you even ate and slept together. Who would believe there was nothing going on between you two? Chu Shuyuan was convinced we had an affair, looking at me with utter disdain. Is this really an ancient person? You're much more open-minded than I am. I was furious. My face flushed red with both shame and anger. My relationship with the young lady is innocent. Chu Shuyuan didn't care whether we were innocent or not. Otherwise, he wouldn't have shared a room with me. I don't care what you do, but you are not to lay a hand on Li Shiyun. I didn't expect Chu Shuyuan to be so perceptive. I had already made up my mind. In the previous life, she made the young lady's life miserable, and now I will make her days feel like years. So, even though Chu Shuyuan pointed it out, I just lowered my head and didn't agree. The situation suddenly became tense, and over there, Li Shiyun's maid was shouting outside the door, "General, the lady has a stomachache and can't sleep. Please go check on her." Li Shiyun, despite being heavily pregnant, still tried to monopolize Chu Shuyuan, which made the Marquis's wife dislike her even more. Chu Shuyuan is the only son of the Marquis's household, so the Marchioness naturally hoped the family would flourish with more descendants. Now, even Lu Ru, the legitimate mistress, hasn't made any fuss, but this concubine, stirring up trouble every now and then, constantly disturbing the peaceful days, displeased her greatly. However, Li Shiyun was under Chu Shuyuan's protection, and with her current pregnancy, the Marchioness had no choice but to tolerate her, no matter how much she disliked her. However, while the young lady was tormenting Li Shiyun, the Marquise even helped her cover up the traces, even if Li Shiyun complained. Chu Shuyuan knew who was behind it, but he couldn't find any evidence. Back and forth, Li Shiyun became much more haggard. Chu Shuyuan couldn't stand the foul atmosphere at home. Not only did he return late from court, but even when he slept, he didn't think of entering any woman's room. Finally, Li Shiyun gave birth to twins, and Chu Shuyuan wanted to raise her status and even have the twins registered under the young lady's name. The young lady rejected it. The matter remained unsettled even after the twins' third-day bathing ceremony. Li Shiyun began to provoke the young lady as soon as she finished her postpartum confinement, even as the young mistress of this Marquis mansion. What does it matter? You still haven't given the general a single child. I was so furious that I went straight up and slapped her. You dare hit me? I'm hitting you. So what? You? I actually saw a glint of triumph in her eyes, and I knew something was wrong. Sure enough, Li Shiyun lay on the ground covering her face, looking utterly pitiful. The next moment, Chu Shuyuan appeared and helped her up. His eyes were filled with heartache. Chulu, you are far too insolent. The young lady shielded me behind her. Chu Shuyuan tried to pull me out, but the young lady reached out to block him. Chu Shuyuan was surprised that the young lady knew martial arts and was actually fighting here. Thanks to the young lady, when I wanted to leave the Lu family and live on my own, I knew a woman must have the ability to protect herself, so I also learned a bit from the young lady. Seeing that the young lady was now at a disadvantage, I immediately stepped in to help. My lady and I were holding our own against Chu Shuyuan in the fight. My lady was fighting with a frenzied glare, aiming every strike at vital points. Even using her own body to block Chu Shuyuan's attacks just to land a hit on him. Chu Shuyuan frowned, stepping back repeatedly, but I knew he was going easy on us. Even if Chu Shuyuan was at his worst, he had been on the battlefield and had taken lives. How could we two sheltered young ladies, who had only learned a few superficial martial arts moves, possibly defeat him? In the end, with one forceful move, Chu Shuyuan knocked both me and the young lady to the ground. The young lady took out itching powder and sprinkled it on Chu Shuyuan. Chu Shuyuan didn't dodge in time and got slapped right in the face. Chu Shuyuan's way of thinking might truly be different from that of a woman. I thought he would no longer pay any attention to me or the young lady. Unexpectedly, he started appearing before us much more frequently, even returning early from court. I couldn't help but suspect that the fight had actually thrilled him. The young lady was annoyed by Chu Shuyuan, and after saying something, he stopped going to her place, which made things miserable for me. I'll rest here today, get things ready. Before I could think of an excuse, the general had already made the decision. Circumstances are stronger than people. Forget it, it's not like we haven't slept together before. General, Anna is already over 3 years old. It's time for him to start his education. I beg you, Anna is the child I gave birth to. Chu Shuyuan had no more thoughts left after that. Stand up, examine me. You want him to study liberal arts? Isn't that a pointless question? If he joins the military, what if he gets killed? Studying liberal arts is a safer bet. He really can't learn anything, and the entire marquisate won't be his anyway. The young lady has made it clear to me that Anna will inherit the marquisate in the future. The marquis is aware of this idea and has tacitly agreed to it, instead of living a comfortable life. He wants to risk his life on the battlefield. Isn't that just foolish? Anyway, I can't bear the thought of Anna dying in battle. I don't have the inner strength that the Marquise possesses. Though I admire it, I cannot emulate it. I'm not even dead yet, and you're already eyeing the Marquis's estate. Lu Ru is truly cunning. Anna is already with the young lady. Realizing I had used the wrong form of address, I quickly corrected myself. Chu Shuyuan rolled his eyes at me and snorted coldly. Your wife now holds both the status of the legitimate wife and the eldest. If the marquisate isn't given to him, who else should it go to? My straightforward words left him speechless. He angrily flicked his sleeve and left. That night, Li Shiyun called for water to be brought 3 times. I couldn't help but mutter before bed, Li Shiyun has such a strong constitution, can she really handle it right after giving birth? I realized I might have a knack for jinxing things. No sooner had I muttered this and closed my eyes to sleep than a maid came to report. Li Shiyun called for the mansion's physician in the middle of the night. I heard she was bleeding. In the morning, after playing with the young lady, I covered my lips and laughed, in high spirits. I went out for a stroll and saw Nanny Zhong sneaking around with someone outside the mansion. I told the young lady about this matter. A few days later, the young lady found an excuse to beat Nanny Zhong half to death. If it weren't for the sake of reputation, Nanny Zhong would have certainly died. It turned out that the young lady's infertility was caused by Nanny Zhong's actions. The reason was that Chuanlu told her about a witchcraft technique, claiming it could exchange people's fates. In reality, it contained musk, safflower, and other drugs that cause infertility. Chuanlu envied the young lady, and Nanny Zhong, in turn, envied Lady Lu. Finally, Nanny Zhong confessed to all the charges. Chuan Lu was now a government official's wife, so she couldn't be dealt with arbitrarily. This matter could only be left unresolved. Knowing the reason, the young lady had no intention of re-regulating her body. She didn't even stop taking her medicine. Nanny Zhong had raised the young lady since childhood, and after such an incident, it was inevitable that the young lady would hold a grudge. After much effort, I finally persuaded the young lady to come out for a stroll to clear her mind. On the way back to the mansion, we ran into Zhong Ziyuan. Today really has been quite unlucky. He looked utterly dejected, and when he saw me, it was as if he had seen a ray of light. Chulu, you're coming back too, aren't you? A night as husband and wife binds us for 100 days. How could you be so heartless? The young lady shielded me behind her and let out a scornful, cold laugh. Didn't Scholar Zhong say he wouldn't regret it? What's this, slapping his own face now? It was only then that Zhong Ziyuan realized it wasn't me who had been reborn. To me, he is just a stranger who always pesters me and says strange things. Seeing the disgust and contempt in my eyes, he froze. He remembered that I had looked at him the same way before I died. He recalled what I had said before my death. If there is a next life, I'd gladly let you and Chuan Lu be together. If only I hadn't saved you back then. What did he say at that time? He sneered at me with a cold look in his eyes. Yes, because you saved my life. I had no choice but to marry you. We have tormented each other until now. If there is a next life, let us never meet again. Seeing him stunned, I took the young lady's hand and left without looking back. From then on, I never saw Zhong Ziyuan again. I heard that he requested to be assigned to a remote place to serve as a prefect. Li Shiyun couldn't stand it anymore and decided to take action against the young lady. The young lady turned the tables on her, putting the mind-altering drug she had bought earlier to use. The incident of Li Shiyun lying on top of a man spread far and wide. Although she had done nothing, her reputation was ruined. Chu Shuyuan immediately suspected that the young lady had a hand in it and came to scold her fiercely. In the end, Chu Shuyuan took Li Shiyun and the twins back to the border. 3 years later, when the enemy nation invaded, Chu Shuyuan was severely wounded and passed away before he could make it back to the capital. The emperor specially conferred upon Anna the title of Marquis heir, with the privilege of inheriting the title without reduction. During the mourning period, the Marquis's residence closed its doors to visitors. The young lady no longer pretended to chant sutras and pray for blessings. Instead, she sat by the table, picking up pastries and eating them bit by bit. I asked out of curiosity, "Miss, you did this on purpose back then, just to make the general go to the frontier, right?" "What, Chulu, don't tell me you've developed feelings for Chu Shuyuan." I shook my head. "Men are not a necessity for me, not to mention that Chu Shuyuan isn't my type. Just the fact that he is the young lady's husband makes me feel awkward around him. Forget about feelings. They say servants resemble their masters. In my previous life, I was able to be close to the young lady because our personalities matched, and because of these more than 10 years of interaction, I know the young lady very well. She is not a heartless person. I don't know what exactly happened in her past life to make her like this. It's a pity. Perhaps I'll never know in this lifetime. What's done is done." I didn't ask any more questions. I just feel sorry for the young lady, who will now have to live as a widow and take on the responsibilities of the Marquis's wife. She is only 23 years old now. The young lady let out a deep sigh, her thoughts drifting to who knows where. Finally, she sighed with emotion. The wheel of heaven turns, and retribution is never absent. Let this karma end here. She had finally let go. Perhaps it's for the best. I'm glad it's not me who was reborn. Sometimes, being reborn doesn't change anything. It only allows one to sink deeper into the same patterns. In such cases, it might be better not to have been reborn at all. "Mother, I was praised by the teacher today." The voice arrived before the person did. The young lady and I looked at the small figure running toward us. Life must go on. With the young lady and Anna by my side, this life is enough. The end.